Exit.
Okay, so today is our discussion. What is it? Week discussion 2? Oh, I always get them mixed up because I feel like we're so behind. And then we are talking about well, we have the questions. Number 4 is one of the questions that we were given, and then we chose to do question number 1. And we are talking about what is secondary transition. And let me go back because there was 2 parts to that. What is secondary transition and why is it important for school personnel to help students plan for post-school transitions? So let's take it away, guys.
Oh, I love secondary.
I thought you, Josue, as soon as like we were doing like secondary transitions, I'm like, Josue, not to put you on the spot, but you came to mind.
Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, it's like kind of like setting that transition, like the IEP, it's gonna be focusing like, throughout the 4 years of high school to what's gonna happen once they graduate. Which is kind of something that first like me and Susie had this conversation where we're like, this doesn't make sense because like, they're still young, but I guess like being able to work in the high school setting, you're like, oh, okay, especially with like the students being able to be more active on those IEPs because it's like what 14 and 3/4 or something like that, I believe.
I can't remember, but I know the age is I think 14. Yeah.
At 14, I think, yeah. Like
Yeah.
you could start at 14, but at 16 you have.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like definitely like, one thing like where I'm at they're very big on doing like every year these like surveys that the students like responds, and it's like, what are your plans, like have they changed from the year before, where do you see yourself, do you want to do like a dual credit, are you okay with the gen ed, is there like trying to get all this data just to really make that IEP a little bit more strong, especially if we're transitioning a student from like a self-contained instructional setting to a COTAP. And I guess like the way my mentor like he's done it, he just kind of like showed us when the IEP, like doing the IEPs is like connecting like the education, the employment, and the I forget is like the individual. I cannot think right now. So like different subjects, and also kind of write those benchmarks what it did, but still expanding that whole like post-secondary transition plan. Sorry.
Yeah, no, like you said, Diana, I immediately, like when I was doing this, that's who I thought of. I was like, man, this is a Josue, like he should get this one. But like we were discussing, and I'm not going to go into that until we go into the next question, just because that's what it was about. But yeah, like I mean, it's important because what we're trying to do and everything, we're always trying to make sure that the students, we're setting them up for success. So like this portion is important for our students to make sure that we're giving them that the needs that they are going to have like after, so like the post education, we want to make sure that we're setting them up for that. And that's why it's important to do this, just to make sure that not only our students are involved, the parents as well, because we want to make sure like this is like full circle, like everybody's involved in this one plan.
So like ensure like all the stakeholders are involved and are aware of this. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially like, I just wrapped up like doing an IEP like last week, and it's really interesting. Like I forgot the name of the website they use for the IEP, like I don't know, an Aspen, whatever you call it. Yeah, that. It's just like super interesting. Like once you get to that transition, it's like it really gets like very detailed about like what is this supposed to be, how you're gonna benchmark it, what are you gonna do accuracy, are you gonna do trial? Like it's super detailed where you're like, wow. And then I even ask you like what assessments, especially for like the like education employment, they do like at my school they do, what is it, the ONET assessment. And it's like it just has like a drop down of like multiple assessment. You're like, I kind of want to take all these for myself just to see what the students are doing.
So I do have a question, like because I'm like third grade elementary, every time we do an IEP, we just hit no for transitions. I'm curious, like, so is this part, the transition part, is that like another set of goals that you have to do for the student?
So like when it comes to the transition, like the goals, you still keep them with like the subject areas, like your math, English, science, social science, like the core subjects, but you want to include like you want to tie like for example for us, like the way my mentor does is like for the writing goal, he'll tie it to like um was it education? Yeah. Education, because that's like learning how to write papers so they're ready for like that next level when they're doing college papers. The other one was it employment. He'll tie it to like reading, because you want to get those skills so the students are able to like learn how to read like their paychecks, how to be able to like read job postings and anything that involves with like finding a job. And the math one he'll tie it to more like when they I'm like so stuck on the word, like more like their individual needs. So like learning how to count money for some students will have that goal attached to math, or how to like learn like finance, like interest right now with like our seniors that we do because of like FAFSA. So they some like it just kind of tied back to a subject, but like when you look at the software, like it's like you cannot pass if you do not put those transition goals, and you have to have like quarterly benchmarks with those, as well as like how you're gonna assess it. Are you doing it bi-weekly, quarterly? What teachers like? It's very like nitty gritty.
So it is like essentially like another LRE setting, kind of.
In a way, yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, because I have never done one either. And I'm used to like clicking, yeah, no, we don't need that right now. So yeah.
I know they just
Um,
updated the software, so it's a little bit more like you just have so many more options to work with, and you're like, okay.
it seems like a lot. It really does.
Sounds like a whole nother IEP, like a whole
Yeah.
nother section 11.
I believe it's like well, the thing is, a lot of it's like the way my mentor showed me is like you take section 11, but you like take out like you just leave your strengths and your strengths and your opportunities kind of folded out through like the core subjects, and you just kind of make your life easier with the feedback you get from other teachers. But it's difficult when the teacher doesn't really give you much data and you're like, all right.
Okay. So we're gonna go into question number 4, and then I'm just gonna read it out. So it says, Jessica's a rising 9th grade student who has a physical and intellectual disability and uses a wheelchair. Imagine you are Jessica's general education teacher and a member of her IEP team. As part of her annual review meeting, Jessica and her team discuss her post-secondary plans. Following is some of the information the team learns during the meeting. So they learn about her strengths, which is she's capable student who works hard to get passing grades. She loves the computer and catches on quickly to games and computer programs. Her short-term goals are to ride the bus to and from school. Currently, her parents transport her. And then she would like to spend more time with friends. Post-school goals is get a job in a hospital or somewhere where she can help sick people, as long as she doesn't have to read much, and to live on her own with a roommate. And her area of needs is she doesn't like to read and often doesn't remember things she does read. Additional information is her parents state that she has never talked with them about her post-school goals, and they've always assumed she would live with them. So it's kind of like they were surprised that she was going to live, or that she wants to live on her own with a roommate. So we needed to complete this, the components of the taxonomy for transitioning programming. And then what our actions and explanations are as the general ed teacher for Jessica. So, so this is going back to like, before I go into this is why I was texting Josue. I was like, okay, to me personally, 9th grade is like, okay, we're really considering like her future goals. And that like seems so soon at 9th grade, because you're thinking, or the way I would thought, or when I was reading this, post-secondary is when they're out of school. So you're like, okay, like we're setting them up for this, But then I guess my argument was like, this is a disadvantage to students who don't have IEPs because we're setting up our students who have IEPs for that success in the long run. And I feel like we're missing out those students that didn't make the cutoff to have an IEP. And so now they're falling behind because we don't have those same expectations that we're creating for these students. That was like my whole spiel. And I like had to text him and I was like, this doesn't make sense. And he's like breaking it down for me. I'm like, no, you're not getting me. It doesn't make sense.
So
No,
like your argument is like those students that weren't eligible for an IEP are at disadvantage because they don't have this support throughout high school, so they're more likely, to kind of like fall through the cracks because there isn't those support that support. I see that argument. Like I think that's a valid point, but I know, like, at least from my experience in high school, there are programs that are meant for kind of those students that are identified earlier or in like freshman year that potentially may need that additional academic support. And I know they tend to be placed in a program like Avid or something like that provide that support. So I mean, it does exist, and then it does depend on the school if they offer it. But I can see your point.
And that's like you said, it depends on the school if they offer. And that's what he mentioned. He's like, it depends on the school. And I'm like, I get it, but I mean, in reality, how many students fall through the crack that don't have services? And I'm talking about in all grade levels. And now we're talking about high school. And like, we want to make sure that students that need those supports don't fall through the cracks. And so some schools have those, but then you think about schools that don't have all those resources and these kids are falling through the cracks. And then it's like, this is like secure. We have our students getting this and we know, and whether the services are offered at the school or not, we know with an IEP, they will always get it. And it's like, it's well around like this is a safeguard for all students that have services. But then you get those students that they missed it just by a little bit to get eligible for an IEP, and here they are like not getting them. That was
well, I know like one thing like my mentor told me was that a lot of parents push for students for the IEP in high school, specifically for junior year for like the SAT because of the
accommodations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I was like, that is so interesting.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. Like, just this week, my mentor teacher was talking about that, how parents will like insist that their child has anxiety to have those accommodations, and they just want testing accommodations. They don't want any academic support or any academic goals. They just want the extended test time.
And you see that a lot in oh my gosh, what are they called? What are the grades? Like third, sixth, and eighth. Yeah. So like you see that more because they want to make sure that students, because I don't know, like it was like you have to, in the NWEA or in the MAP test, you had to reach a certain level. And then it was like, well, we want to make sure that they reach it because we don't want them to fall behind. But it's not even falling behind. It's they want that advantage without everything else to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So thinking about the table, and it talks about program structure. As a gen ed teacher, what are some things that you guys would consider offering as tools to help Jessica out in her post-secondary plan?
And we're using the, what is it,
Taxonomy.
Yes, that word.
It took me a while to say it, but I was thinking like program structure is where it's being done, and considering that she's in ninth grade, most of this is done in school. So as her gen ed teacher, I would be like, well, I want to ensure that she's in my classroom and receiving like the academic, like going for her academic goals so that it can lead her to be able to increase like her memory, like comprehend, like things like that. So it'll help her. That's how I was thinking this, because we're thinking as a gen ed teacher.
No, definitely. I didn't even realize that it was like supposed to be from the gen ed teacher's perspective, and I was like, oh wait, that changes everything. Game changer.
I was doing it and then I'm like, oh wait, and I had to like redo it 3 times because I was thinking like, oh, you're just gonna figure out like how you would set this up according to the way it's that the taxonomy is. And then I was like, oh no, it might be as a special ed teacher. And then I was like, oh no, it's as the gen ed teacher. But yeah, I was thinking because as we look at the program structure, it's more about like where is this is being done, like it's the facility of it and everything like that. So that's what I thought. I don't know if you guys agree with that, but that's what I thought of it.
No, I think that definitely makes sense, especially like Jessica is going to be in the least restrictive environment, so gen ed most likely a co-taught classroom. I think especially because it doesn't really give us like much in depth, like if she has like an IP for like specific like areas of needs, or or maybe I'm
Okay.
wrong.
No, yeah, that's how I thought.
Yeah,
So
like
then
because the program structure, I feel like
Yeah.
it's like a really big umbrella, and so we're just like, as the gen ed teacher, you're really it doesn't really specify.
It's like you get that flex
subject.
of the pie, and that's
Yeah.
it. Yeah. Student focused planning. So here's what I wrote. So it says, seeing that Jessica likes computers, there should be a recommendation that she works in the hospital that has to do with computers. So like her focus is she loves computers. She wants to work in the hospital. So we want to make sure that there's a program that possibly we would structure where she would go to the hospital and like start working with like things that have to be with computer, or also providing assistive technology to help her read and possibly use that at the hospital, just so that she has access to something that gives her that assistance in the classroom and out of the classroom.
I wonder also like maybe even include like on top of like going off like
Piggybacking, got you.
like even introducing like videos also, like if not like with like if the reading's not done through like the assistant, maybe offering that like these are a set of videos that are going to fall within that nursing realm that Jessica could look at as well, like as a third, fourth option.
Yeah.
And even probably like setting classes specifically focused that will help Jessica like as like she's going through high school, like will benefit her once she's done. So like a biology or
So like the student development.
yes.
So that's the next one. And that's where I talked about like the mnemonics, which is the memorization. That. So I was like, okay, because she talks about that she reads, and then she doesn't remember what she read. So I was like, well, as her gen ed teacher, like that would be my biggest focus, is to provide academic skills for that, to strengthen that. So it would be useful for the classroom and then for employment or her occupational skills that she needs.
I also think like taking into consideration, like I feel like there wasn't a lot talked about like her social skills, because there is that component if she wants to spend more time with friends, but
Yeah.
like what does that mean? Like she needs to be a little bit more social, or like she just needs like free time. And then especially working in that hospital setting, you're encountering you have those encounters with a lot of different people. So knowing like this, does she need like that socializing aspect that she needs to work on?
Providing her social skills, yeah. And then like as a gen ed teacher, that could be like, oh, we're going to do groups. And it's like, okay, everyone, you can work with one person, and then like gradually increase it. Like, okay, now do 3 to 4 people in a group. So that way she starts working on that.
I think even with like those groups like presentation and allowing that place for each of them to talk, because I know that was the thing with one of my students, and it was like, all right, we're gonna do baby steps. We're gonna interview.
Yep. Okay, so then our next step would be family involvement.
I think it's gonna be big in general. And kind of like even what you said, like that the parents should be available to the meetings. and build that bridge between home and the community. I think just parent involvement is super big, especially if they're the ones that are gonna help Jessica on the kind of like the long run. And maybe there might be some like concerns that the mom or dad or whoever else in the family might have about that as well.
And especially being the gen ed teacher, I think as a gen ed teacher, you have more accessibility to speaking with parents as opposed to a special ed teacher who you're like just in and out and you meet them for IEPs or for conferences. Like thinking from this assignment as a gen ed teacher, you have that ability to make more communication, have open communication with parents, and always ensure that parents are involved and concerns are always brought up. So that way it's always put into this.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, but again, yeah, I don't even know how to like say anything else because like you summed it up pretty good.
I'm sorry, guys. Like I was like, I'm really doing this today, okay?
Yeah, because I feel like usually like with the IEPs we do, like I know like there's I don't know if it's like for a same thing for elementary, but there's like a parents concern section. I don't know if
Yes.
that's okay, so it's
Yes.
okay. And I know like usually what they'll do in my school, they'll wait till like the day of the IEP and ask them for that. But then I know some teachers that do it like email it, and it's just like
I think as a parent myself, I like having that asked before the meeting because you are able to put more thought into it when you're typing it, as opposed to you're thinking of it there on the spot.
no, definitely because I feel like sometimes if you ask the parent, they'll be like, especially like coming from like the Latinx community, you're like,
No,
Oh,
everything's
everything's fine.
Yep.
college, that's it, like cool. You're like,
Yeah, so for us, it's like we do write it in if we notice or if during the school year at any point parents bring up any concerns, that's something we take note of. And when we're writing those IEPs, we make a note of parent raised concern for X, Y, and Z, whether it was like an issue of bullying, it was a language, or whatever it was, like we document that and we add that to that section. And then at the meeting, we also have the parents give the opportunity to express themselves how they, if they have any concerns or like the progress they've noticed within for their child, or if they're concerned of for their progress. So I think we try and do it both ways, but we definitely like re-emphasize it at the meeting. And like Susie mentioned, at the meeting, they're always like, no, everything's great.
I
It's
think
okay. It's okay.
harder like
Now, with my son, we just had his meeting. And I like the way they did it, that like I was like, oh my gosh, like once I go into my classroom, like this is gonna be like, I want this to be something that I'm gonna do all the time. And it's like you just have to put it in practice always so that way you don't forget. But she creates a Google form and it talks about like the strengths, the weaknesses, like coming from the parent, and then concerns. So that way, when you're looking at the IEP, it's not just the teachers, like gen ed teacher, special ed teacher, the psychologist, like anybody that's involved, you see your words in there too, and it's more meaningful.
oh,
And your son's school sent you a form that you filled out?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's like, just as a note, like you guys, I recommend doing that because as a parent, that felt good. That felt good to see that. And it was like, okay, you are really part of this. Like you see your words there.
was the form like just in English or was it also like Spanish as well?
You can make it anyway. It's so like it, the teachers, when they meet, like it's like, okay, what's your preferred form of communication? And it's sent to me in English because I told them English is my preferred communication. So that's why. But we have almost 10 minutes left, so we'll go to the next one. So interagency collaboration.
So let's see.
So this goes back to the gen ed. Just bringing in agencies in the classroom that will be tailored to not just Jessica in this, but like in this instance, it would be like, oh, let's bring agencies from the hospital so that way she can have some form of contact and know who she can go to and be like, oh, I'm interested in this. Or it would be like you're making that full circle, like creating opportunities for
Yeah.
students.
Kind of making that I guess like you would say like the real life experience in a sense. Because then Jessica would be like, actually, maybe I don't want to be a nurse.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes they're not exposed to different things. So if you're giving students the opportunity, it like gives them like a little light bulb. Oh, I really like the sound of that,
Yeah, I think especially with like, nowadays, I feel like with students, like you'll see them like, I want to be I don't know, like a influencer or a TikToker
Yes.
or a police officer or like, something that it's, I guess people see as quick and easy.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I think definitely having that real life connection, outside source, will be beneficial. We don't need more TikTokers, just saying.
Yeah.
Uh,
All right. And we are done.
any final thoughts, comments, concerns, emotional outbursts?
Yeah, I was mad. No, I'm just kidding.
We know how you feel about transition plans, just for
Yeah, I'm sure I put it out there, okay?
I think I don't know, like one thing that I always find so interesting, like just kind of like a final thing that I was like we're talking like hearing freshmen, like teachers that are doing freshman IEPs talk about like how much of a disconnect the transition from 8th grade to high school IEP plan is.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
what do you mean by that?
Like
So in 8th grade, because I'll tell you, because I'm in 8th grade and I've seen them. There's these expectations, like you're asking 8th graders about
What do you-
post-secondary, and you're creating this so when they go into high school, I mean, it's mind-boggling, like the way they come out. Like they're not real expectations.
or sometimes even like the benchmark they had would be like student would read X, Y, and Z at 70% accuracy. And I'm like, but you're doing like 3 out of 4 trials. That's not even, I don't know, that's a 60%. I don't know, like
You know what? That has nothing to do to transitional. Those are really bad IEPs.
and that's like one thing my mentor's like, yeah, it's always interesting that first year. Yeah, and anything else, y'all? Y'all want to do a high school like IEP? Y'all?
No thanks.
Mm.
All right. Am I good to stop recording?
Yep.
All right. Wait, how do I stop? Oh, okay. There you go.